Coates encourages his son to study his surroundings, to question what he sees, then to question what he sees after that. He believes the questions matter as much or maybe more than the answers. A. Did your parents or someone else close to you encourage you to study your surroundings and ask questions? Have you or will you encourage your children, grandchildren, or any child to study their surroundings and ask questions? I'm not good at this.
At what?
At at being observant about my surroundings, and I'm thinking of it, in a physical sense, like walking down the street and noticing whether there may be some danger lurking nearby. I'm not good at that, so I don't believe that I taught it
To me.
to my son.
Uh-uh.
Did I?
No. But the military has taught me how to be cognizant of my surroundings. They're always telling you that if you see some kind of sign of terror, or if you see something is not right, or if something looks out of place, then you should take steps, take appropriate steps to handle that situation. They kind of gave me some of the groundwork for that.
You say that, and it makes me think about the other story recently in the news that Venita and I have been talking about a lot, which was the young girl the teenager at Spring Valley High in Columbia, South Carolina, and her school teacher who was a black man. I think he's the one that called for the police to come. But anyway, she's the one that the cop grabbed her out of her desk chair and swung her across the floor. I think I was telling you about it last time, Dean. But anyway, the other sort of interesting angle on that story is what could have possibly been going on in that teacher's head that would allow him to stand idly by.
Fear. He was fearful. If he would do that to a little girl, instead of talking to her, then he would be dead in seconds. Probably the fear of the powerlessness that Coates is always talking about that exists in the black community. No matter who you think you are, you could be the president of the United States, you'll still get shot in the head. No matter how far you raise up that ladder, no matter how good you think you are, you'll still get shot down and forgotten about. It's that simple. And he's thinking and he's also thinking probably about the fact that cop will get away with his murder. Because everybody knows black people always have guns, even teachers in school. And they'll never find the weapon. And they'll still go easy on the cop, because cops are judge, jury, and executioner to black people.
Well, you've always been the manly man type. You got your girly man, you got your manly man, and you've always been the manly man type, and very protective of me. I can recall you stepping in to defend me against, some of your uncles. And now, given your military training, can you picture that you would have stood by and let that child be flung across the room?
it's difficult. You know, you want everybody to walk away from a situation alive. You know, you don't want anybody to pay the ultimate price because somebody couldn't take a defeat. You know, you want to do what's right and defend people, but then you get into the say I did so. Say I defended her and I was right with my conscience. And say somehow I didn't get shot. So let's imagine in a world that I didn't get shot in that scenario. Now I'm in the courtroom and it's my word against this defender of justice with this legacy of hatred against black people. You know, with the country with a legacy of hatred. And now I'm going away forever when if I was a white man and I did the same thing, I probably would have got a slap on the wrist. You know?
Or been hailed as a hero.
Or been hailed as a hero. Defender of the unfortunate poor. Defender of the poor. Robin Hood. You know?
If I may say something, Dean, I'm going to put a little spin on this right quick.
Okay.
There's a thing called right, and there's a thing called wrong. I'm not a gray area person, and maybe that'd be the downfall of me. I don't see any middle road to that.
The world is full of gray areas.
Let's put a spin on this. Suppose that had been your son or your daughter, and someone, which is question 7 actually, flipped him backwards in the chair, risk breaking his neck, give him a concussion, even death if hitting their head the wrong way, drags him out of that chair, takes him and flings him across the room like a rag doll, and they just stood there. Why don't we just bring it on home?
I don't want everybody to be hurt.
How would you feel about the adult in that room that allowed your son to not only be treated that way, but there was a risk of severe injury and death? How would you feel? Would you
feel horrible?
I want to know, 1 second, what you might say in your head, well, you know what? I can understand it. Because if that person that stepped up and decided to defend my child, that literally got their neck broke, then they could have succumbed to a bullet from a cop. So I can understand why they did not prevent, I'm just asking you a question, my son from physical injury and or death, not much left if they live, the psychological effects that they will carry, he will carry with him for the rest of his life. Now, put yourself in that scenario and tell me how you feel. I want to know, honestly, how you feel about that.
If somebody put their hands on my child, I would have to fight.
No, I'm talking, no, I gave you a scenario. I want to know how understanding you would be to the adult person, teacher, that called the police to come in and remove him from the room, and he did that to your child while this teacher stood there passively and watched.
I would be outraged.
Okay.
I would be angry.
Okay, I'm just wondering, would you give him a pass? Would you be understanding about why he didn't do anything?
No.
Why he called? Oh, okay.
You know what?
Okay. Just wondering.
Partially. I would be, look, it would be a mixed response. Look, partially, because I know the system is out to get us. Part of me would understand, but I would still be angry that my child was put in that situation and hurt. Because actually, the cop is the one that I should be angry at. He threw my child out of the chair. That is not professional. He's trained to be professional, and his job is supposed to be about professionality. It is not a teacher's job to get shot defending someone. So I would kind of understand that his role is to teach, not to take bullets and not to hurt cops.
But I would be
angry at the system.
Not to protect the child, and not to protect. His job is not to protect that child. That you, as a parent,
look. His job is to protect the child.
Listen,
one at a time.
the scenario is, it's not his job as a teacher to protect your child.
It is.
Did you leave in the care of him, which is a part of that educational system, for so many hours a day? But it's not his responsibility.
It is his job to protect your child.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it is. I'm not saying that it's not.
You just told me it's not a teacher's job. That's not what you said.
But I'm also saying that the cop has to be the one, has to be more of the focus of the anger. Because, look, where did that cop come from? That cop was supposed to be a servant of the people.
Why was he called? Why was the cop called? That's my question.
The cop may have been called for a disciplinary action or whatever. I don't know.
Why is a resource, and the key word is resource, and the reason why they say resource, because this policeman that's put in the school, and all the school systems across the country now, they call them resource officers. The key word is resource. Not beat down, not throw across the room, not chokehold, not knock out the back of a chair. They're called resource officers. This young lady, which you probably missed that part, was unarmed. She was not threatening any other student in the class. She was not running out on a machete or a magnum. You know
what happened? The cops were called.
Well, let me interject for a minute, and because I didn't want to get y'all all off on the course, but let me interject and say, you know, back on the question of what you thought it was important to teach your son. And I was talking about culture and history, and the point of that to me was that I believe that it is very important that we consciously make an effort to love ourselves as Black people, because there is so much messaging out there that tells us we're not worthy of love.
And sometimes
and that's the lie. And that we have to fight that lie. Because until we can fight that lie and love ourselves, we can't have the kind of unity that we're always talking about we need. And so one of the problems that I hear in what Dean is saying is that, you know, if someone stood up to the cop, and actually there was a young Black girl who did, but you know, you can say it's less likely that she would have been shot than the Black male teacher. Okay, but if the Black man had stood up for this young girl and had ended up in court, you know, as you say, Dean, because we're imagining that he did not get shot. Then you know, then the next problem would be, for the most part, the Black community would not be there to support that man.
Right.
You know, in the early 80s, before you were even born, Dean, and in the 70s, there were a lot of big political trials going on. And, you know, one of them, Venita, is who came up in our reading on Alice Walker. Oh, God, why can't Mumia Abu Jamal. But anyway, there were a lot of cases like that of people that had stood up to the system in some way and were now being railroaded by the system in these fake trials. But there was a great deal of community support for them. Rallies, you know, marches, you know, visits to the prison, you know, care, love, concern.
Right.
But we're not there anymore.
No.
And so if you are the brave heart who decides to stand up on the basis of principle, which, you know, I believe in. You have to do it
Alone.
knowing that there's a good likelihood you're on your own.
You are on your own, Michelle.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
And that's okay.
I would love to stand up against the system and fight the power on my own. But I don't. But his
But
word
this is
against
why
mine,
this is
I'm
why
away from
Ta-Nehisi this is
the
why
light.
Ta-Nehisi is talking about,
Right.
you know, he doesn't want his son to blind
Right.
his eyes.
Right.
Because if you blind your eyes to what's going on, you also don't feel any affinity or connection to people who look like you. And you know, in a healthy world, it wouldn't matter what people look like. You know, it wouldn't matter what amount of melanin you have in your skin. We are all underneath just human beings. We know that. But we're not in a healthy world. We're in an insane world. You know, and so if you can't find your peeps, then you don't have
a voice.
You don't have the strength. You don't have the power. You don't have the real capacity to stand up and protect yourself. And going right back to the beginning of this, your questions, Venita, about how did the man, you know, that was being put out of his house feel? He felt alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
But I also realized that because the world is very different than it used to be, that sometimes when you really feel strongly about a situation, that you have to accept the fact that you may be standing alone, which I have done, and I have no problems doing it. Whether that be any child, I personally would have had to stand alone and deal with whatever repercussions, because when I decide to do something, I already know that there might be repercussions, and I would have had to do that, no matter what child. It happened to be a black little girl. It could have been a white little girl, Asian little girl, a Muslim, a Jewish little girl. It wouldn't have made a difference. A boy, I would have had to stand up.
Well, that's why we say we wouldn't have survived slavery.
Well, we know that, Michelle.
We would have went down.
Michelle, we ain't going to get into that, Dean, because we know we would have not made it.
We wouldn't have made it into teenagehood.
No. That's why we were born the time we were, because we would not have made it. Okay?